All right, it is now time for us to go to Seattle, get to catch up with our buddy Niko Moreno, and find out what's going on with a team that is still in League's Cup. What is up, brother?
Hey, what's going on, John SDH family? Happy to be here. Excited for what's ahead, what just kind of passed us by. It's been a fantastic Leagues Cup, and man, I got to tell you, it's been crazy. It's been crazy, and I loved it.
So you are covering a team that is currently a survivor, still hanging around in Leagues Cup. How in the wide world of sports has this happened that Seattle has made their way to the Final Eight?
Yeah, look, I asked Brian Smetzer directly, that if he felt like this team was playing with a chip on their shoulder. It was clear that the narrative was Sounders have shocked LA Galaxy, and then Sounders pull it off against Pumas, and I mean they destroyed Pumas. But even then, the favorite for many was Pumas going into that game, regardless of it being played at Lumen Field. And this team has just cemented itself. It has used this tournament to provide some of the elements that have been missing for about a season and a half, and is the ability to play games and win games when things don't go your way, and that resilience and that ability for you to just either match physicality or match the other team's intensity, or simply have enough confidence and enough character to pull yourself out of bad moments. And that's kind of what we've seen out of Seattle in this tournament. They had an awful game against Necaxa. There was some rotation. There were some things that were different. That was not your best team. But even then, you could see that the vibes weren't necessarily there for that specific game. Then you move on from that. You use that to your advantage and say, hey, this is not the way we play games. And now against Pumas, you completely tear them apart. You are able to withstand some of the big moments that they had. You were able to eliminate a guy as difficult to cover and to contain as Chino Huerta and Rubalcaba on the right side, and you did not allow Memo to get anything inside the 18. Then Funes Mori comes in and he makes no difference. So I think that Seattle has really done well bringing back that identity of jerarquía, as they call it in Spanish, that it factor that goes in with the shield and the colors of your jersey and the field, your stadium. That's something that Seattle has had in the past. And the fact that I feel like their collective defensive discipline and collective defensive effort have given them a platform that raises their floor. And as long as their attack can get a couple in the back of the net, they're always in a game because of that really good defensive effort.
Yeah, and I mean, in Atlanta in years past, it's been referred to as garra. You've got that as well. And is it coming from the veterans? Are the youngsters like Paul Rothrock, are they helping out in all of this? Is it the veterans carrying it through? Is it momentum from the kids kind of kicking the veterans in the pants? Where's it coming from?
Thank you for that. No, I need to talk about Paul Rothrock. I think that those guys that are the younger guys that maybe have not been part consistently of that either 11 or that 18 or the rotational players coming off the bench. But I think that Paul Rothrock is a guy that has really brought a difference in that specific element of the game, which is that fight, that effort, that willingness. You've seen it time and time again where he goes into every game just leaving it all out there. And not just that, but maybe feeling like because there are these other players that have either more technical ability or they have been in the game longer, he needs to just play at 150%, not 100%, 150 every single time he duels the ball, every time that he defends, every time he pressures. And he has some of that personality where if there was a big tough challenge, he's the first guy that's going to come get in your face. He's going to play physical. He's going to give it right back to you. And I think in that Pumas game, that was a big part of why they won that game. And we asked Paul Rothrock about it. He said, look, man, when a team takes cheap shots at you, you can't just take it. You got to give it right back. And that's what Seattle did. There were some altercations, some scrums, some, benches clearing, all that stuff. I'm not saying that's something that a team needs or that you should be looking for, but when it happens, you got to match it. And I feel like Seattle, because of guys like Paul Rothrock, have added some of that. I do think that some of the veteran players are a little bit more bought in with the current state of the team, and maybe it's just more obvious and it's more present. Maybe they've always had it. Maybe the whole season they've had it. But right now, against Liga MX teams in a tournament that, you're traveling or you're with your teammates and you kind of have a common goal that's very in a short span of time, maybe all those veterans have really come out to play. I think Yemer Gomez Andrade, he's more of a quiet leader. He's more of a show by example type of leader. He's been amazing this tournament, physically, just keeping teams out of the 18, just matching physicality. You saw against Pumas, he's pulling guys off very passive aggressively, being like, I'm calming things down, but he's putting his big bear paw on somebody like, here you go, buddy. Yeah, come on, go ahead and move on, man. Doing all those things. I do feel like the leaders in this squad, in this Seattle Sounders team, are starting to show a little bit more of that leadership. And even without Stefan Fry, who obviously hasn't played Leagues Cup because Andrew Thomas has been given the ability to play this tournament, other guys are starting to really come out and show that. I think Christian Roldan's a guy that we've been asking for some more fire, a little bit more fire, a little bit more of that ability to affect games and be influential in other ways from statistics. And I think that he's done that this tournament, specifically last game as well. Love to see that fire, love to see him all over the place. So I just think that this team has some momentum and they have to carry that inertia for the rest of the tournament, and then definitely into Opens Cup semifinal and eventually into league play.
I was going to say, does it worry you or concern you? But what's your overall vibe about a team like Mazatlan making it to the final 8, and we're missing two big guns in Cruz Azul and Tigres? What does that say about this particular tournament? Is it just the random nature of, stuff like that happens and you get to PKs and anything's possible? Just ask Mazatlan. Or what's your vibe about the Liga MX participation so far in this tournament, where, we always anticipate the big guns making it to the end, and we don't have all the big guns making it to the end?
Yeah, look, that's a complicated question to answer because
we got time, brother. That's what we got.
No, because it really is about where you stood on this tournament and on the level of either league prior to this.
Yeah.
If you were of the belief that Liga MX was way beyond MLS, that you're starting to come back to reality and understand that this isn't the MLS where you're going to be able to just come in and just because you're the Mexican team and just because you have one CCLs or you have X amount of players that give you the ability to just dominate other teams in Liga MX. When you face MLS teams, it's going to be a whole different ball game. The dynamic aspect, the speed of the game. There are some analysts in Mexico that are saying that MLS reflects more of a European style of play that is so much quicker, so much more direct. So it depends where you stood. For me, as someone who has been an advocate for this league, who understands the growth, that is no surprise to me that so many MLS teams have done well. I think that it just puts it out there and it gives it a showcase for others to really see where MLS has grown. I'm not one to be as simplistic as just because you're beating a team or a tournament against another league, it immediately says that your league is better, because it's not that simple. You can see the level of a league in just a face-to-face, regardless of what it is, whether it's Champions League or CCL or Leagues Cup. I feel like there's way beyond that. There's developmental things, there's infrastructure. But what I will say is that Mexican teams have realized how difficult it has been for MLS teams in the past when the calendar of a tournament hits right at the beginning of your season or right at the preseason, and right when you haven't been able to really figure out who your best 11 is. You haven't had time for your newcomers to really build into your team. And that has kind of balanced things out a little bit more. So I just believe that in MLS, the gap between teams, because of the salary cap space, is a lot closer than in Liga MX, where you have Los Grandes and the guys with the big checkbooks. And then after the best 4 teams, the level really drops. And Mazatlan is a very rare Cinderella story, as you would have in any bracket. It's the right time. I think Vucetich is a hell of a coach. I think that collectively Mazatlan has showed you that they know what they do well and they know what they don't, and they're going to play to their virtues and they're going to play to their game. And you saw how dominant they were in transition plays against Cruz Azul. And even when the game gets tough and they draw that game, Cruz Azul does, then you have that confidence and that effort to just pull it off in the shootout. So I just think that it's been a perfect nutshell to where each of these leagues are at, and it's probably the most clear, in my opinion, that the level of each league has shown.
All right, we're down to the final 8, and we'll go through the matchups here. We can go to juice boxes if you wish. Crew, who were down 2-0 to and Friends, score 3 and scored 2 in 2 minutes to equalize, and you get a third to come back to win 3-2. Columbus makes it through. They go up against NYC. NYC was the one that beat Tigres at Red Bull Arena to get to the round of 8. What are you looking at in this one? Is this one Columbus and everybody else?
It is Columbus and everybody else. It's been Columbus and everybody else. Even when they went down 2-0, I remember looking at my son and said, look, this team's not done. They have enough. They're going to bring in some subs and they're going to figure it out. And oh my, did they. And I also feel like Tata maybe waited a little too long to make substitutions. I felt like Luis Suarez should have came off a little bit earlier. I feel like Wijat should have come off a little bit earlier. Redondo was gassed. And the more the game went on, when you have a team in front of you like Columbus, that the soccer module, the ideology is so ingrained within their play, it was only a matter of time that if you didn't keep your foot on the throat of that tiger, it was going to bite you. And that's exactly what happened. Diego Rossi is in unbelievable form. I talked about him last week. I told you he was a guy that was going to be, that is in such great form that when those top 3 players of Columbus, if you want to add Christian Ramirez as part of those 3, when one of them is on a heating streak, they're going to give him the ball and they're going to allow him to just do you, baby. You are him. Get it out there. And that's what's going on with Rossi right now. His ability to just crash the box at the right times, the IQ to understand where the ball is going to fall, the technical ability to just put the game away. I mean, he's been so clinical in front of goal, whether it's on crosses, first touches, whether it's with the right runs and finishing in front of goal. I just think him and Cucho are the most dynamic, most talented duo in MLS, and they're showing it to you. So Inter Miami, I praise them for what they did. They had a really good tournament despite injuries, despite not having Messi. Tata has done a great job uplifting and developing a lot of players like Bright and others. But in this game, they were a little bit exposed, and you saw the way they were coming on that left side, on Columbus's right side. They knew where the weak point was, and they continued fall through that and create those overloads and those overlaps with their wing backs, and they just essentially broke down Inter Miami. So yes, I think it's them against everybody else. Now, New York City, let's talk about them a little bit. Santiago Rodriguez has turned and evolved, and maybe those who had not seen him before now are turning their heads into this fantastic player. And he's always had the talent, man. I mean, I always say, I kind of laugh when I think about the young player that I met here at Lumen Field in a friendly game against Nacional de Uruguay. Did the interview with him. I mean, he was amazing. He scored 2 goals in Seattle. And now watching the maturity and the other aspects that make a great player, whether it's effort and continue to grow and becoming a leader and all his technical and tactical abilities growing, man, Santi's been unbelievable. He scored every single time in the last 3 games, at least, in this League's Cup. And he just put them above a team that maybe not many thought that they could beat. And Tigres, they had opportunities. I thought that they held well. New York City did, but they believed that they could win this game. And between Maxi Rodriguez, who's also been influential and crucial for New York City FC, they get over one of the Gigantes of Mexico, and now they'll face a Columbus Crew team that's a different dog. That's a different type of team. I still don't think they have enough to beat Columbus, but it'll be a fun game. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think that Mazatlan, we talk about them, I think that their run ends against Philly. Philly will grind it to a halt, and I think Mazatlan gets frustrated at Subaru Park, and I think that it ends there for them. Club America, I think, takes care of business. I think it'll be tighter than folks anticipate with Colorado, with what Chris Armas has been doing this season. I think that Chris Armas is proving his point about give me a little investment, leave me alone, let me cook, and you see what happens. Now let's talk about your game before we get out of here. Seattle and LAFC at Lumen, 8 o'clock on Saturday night. What do you think?
I mean, there's going to be fireworks, man. There's going to be fireworks. LAFC is, with no doubt, a more talented team. In paper, they have this game in the bag. But this Seattle team has finally, and I'll repeat it again, reminded me of those Seattle teams in the past that will find a way to win, and will find a way to fight, and will find a way to break you down one way or another. Defensively, Seattle matches up. I wouldn't say well, because the speed and the intelligence of their wingers, speaking of LAFC, whether it's Denis Bouanga on one side or Kike Oliveira on the other, it's difficult. Seattle has upped their game in the fullback position. I mean, Alex Roldan has had some issues all season. He's had some defensive woes. Nuhu himself had some problems this season. They've been great last couple of games. Take away the Necaxa game. Can they do that for 90 minutes against LAFC? That's going to be the big question. They need to completely eliminate the ability for either one of those wingers to get behind the back line, to get services in, to get into the end line. Not an easy job. But after seeing Christian and Alex team tag Chino Huerta the way they did, frustrate him, this guy was pulling all the hair in his head. They need to do that to Denis Bouanga, right? That's a lot faster. They can do a lot more things, in my opinion. So can they do that? But it all goes back to, if you need to win ugly, you're going to win ugly. It doesn't have to be brilliant. It just has to be a win. And I think Seattle can definitely do that. So as much as I've been doubting Seattle throughout this tournament and this season, for reasonable reasons, I believe, even if Pepo de la Vega won't be back, because he won't be back, Raul will be back. He will be ready for this game. I think that Seattle is going to pull it off. And hopefully I'm not wrong, but I really do believe that this team has earned the benefit of the doubt because of what they provided us in the last couple of games, and because it feels like this locker room is at an all-time high in 2024. So we'll see if it works out. LAFC is the better team, but I think Seattle will pull it off.
All right, so what's going on with Pulso Sports Soccer Bar, and what's the mug for today, and what cup of coffee are you on?
Man, the mug is actually on the kitchen counter, but it is my third cup of the day. I've been up since 4:30. I have another show that I did earlier today in Uruguay, and I'm going to be getting ready here for Soccer Bar in a little bit. So it's been a heavy, pretty convoluted morning, but always excited to be on. So Soccer Bar will be getting ready to get going in about an hour. We're going to be talking about all this. We're going to go into every matchup. We're going to talk about Columbus and what's been the difference and the way that managerial front office has done so well to shed those players that maybe needed to move on. You bring in guys that immediately fit into your style, and now you're at an even higher place. We're going to talk a little bit about the calendar and maybe the evolution of what Leagues Cup could look like. I do think that a home and away situation should be added into this tournament at some point, at least maybe in the semifinal stages, at least in some sort of other way that you can figure out. And then in Pulso Sports, we're going to be today at Providence and Swedish Clubhouse talking to Craig Weibel. Craig Weibel's talking today. He has not talked all year, it seems like. The window closes, obviously, today. And therefore, we're going to get a chance to talk to Craig. There will be no signings. I think that the Seattle Sounders, if anything, might add a guy like Georgie, who's Tacoma Defiance player. They might sign him to a full contract. But as much as Craig tried, because he did, I can say here in SDH that he at least tried with 4 different players to sign someone, and the budget just wasn't there. So we'll hear from him. Definitely check that out at Pulso Sports. I'll do my best to upload that immediately today, as I don't do always. So go ahead and check that out. All for you guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Love you, brother. We'll catch up with you next week. Be safe and stay caffeinated.
Thank you, my man. Have a good one, and we'll see you next week.